What's it saying, my precious, my love? Is Smeagol losing his nerve? No, never. Smeagol hates nasty hobbits. Smeagol wants to see them dead. And we will. Smeagol did it once, and he can do it again. It's ours. We mustn't get the precious. We must get it back. Patience, my love. First, we must lead them to her. We lead them to the winding stair? Yes, stairs, and then up. The stairs we go until we come to the tunnel. And when they go in, there's no coming out. She's always hungry. She always needs to feed. She must eat. All she gets is filthy orcsies. And they doesn't taste very nice, does it, precious? No, not very nice at all, my love. She hungers for sweeter meats, and we will find it. And take it for me! For us. Yes, we meant for us. Gollum.
He caught him red-handed about, it didn't make sense to me. Like, he literally heard him say those things, and Frodo's just like, oh, nah. Like, they just let the whole situation, like, they let it go. They can't let it go. He said, well, once the hobbits are dead, I'm going to take the ring back. And like he said, you keep it for me. Like they had the little battle argument, and Sam just was like, okay, I guess, whatever, Mr. Frodo says. But
Sam is a little bitch, man. Like, he just does whatever Frodo says. Just, sorry to interrupt you, side note.
No, like, that's pretty much it. It's just, I don't know. I don't find it very believable that you overhear someone. Like if me and you were going on a fucking camping trip, and there's this damn creature that can talk, and then I overhear it being like, hey, I'm going to kill them when they're not paying attention. I'm going to be like, yo, Chase, like, he just said that. And he'd be like, no, he didn't. I'm like, no, motherfucker, you did. Like, I heard it. Like, I just heard it with my own ears. Like, he had a whole little episode and you missed it. I'm telling you what he said. Like, I would not let that shit go, because I'm like, all right, well, then you're going by yourself, because I ain't going to sit here and get killed by this motherfucker because you don't want to listen. Like, you know, so I don't know, man. It's just weird.
Film overall. The part one specifically.
Yeah. So for me, this has been the film that had the most amount of differences, and also the most amount of differences that affect the plot line. Like the one with Saruman there and falling off. Like we talked about it yesterday, or not. Sorry, last week when we closed out like the aftermath of the big war and everything. You know, the hobbits go back to the Shire, and they still have to get rid of Saruman there, who kind of took over everything. And so the fact that he just dies here before we're even caught up with like the events that it's just so out of place, and it made no sense at all, and it does affect, you know, what happens after everything that was in the book. It was a complete contradiction. So things like that, just like this. So I was disappointed in that sense that, you know, if there's a lot of differences, but it doesn't really affect the plot line, like I'll find little annoyances because I'm really nitpicky, and I'm just kind of like that as a person. I want things to line up as accurately as possible. I know there's going to be changes, and that's fine, but like don't do things that negatively affect the plot of the story, to me. Especially, you know, you call the movie is called The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King, and the book is called The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King. You're supposed to be you know, based off of the novel, so I know it's not going to be perfect, but there's just some things in there that, like you said, you know, it was too different for me to really be able to look past it. And so for me, so far, this has been my least favorite of all the films we've covered so far. You know, part 1, part 2 of Fellowship, part 1, part 2 Two Towers. This so far, part 1 of Return of the King, has been my least favorite of the film.
Yeah, I gotta agree, man. I gotta agree. Mathematically, I just don't know what the odds are that a big ass heavy crystal ball stays in your cloak as you fall down. I called it 50 feet. You said that shit was like 3 stories.
Dude, that shit was like 20 stories. That was for sure at least 150 feet in the air. At least. Like, could be more. Like,
I just don't know who was in charge of that scene, because I would have even looked at that in the cutting room floor and been like, this just doesn't make, like, it's cool looking at this, just doesn't make any sense. I got the bridge mill like stabbed him. I don't know, man. This was, I have to say, yeah, this was bad. This
So
was my
I just did
favorite.
some quick research while we were talking here, and the Tower of Orthanc is said to be 500 feet tall. 500 feet. So this guy fell 500 feet, but that Palantir stood right where it was supposed to be in his sleeve, all 500 foot of that drop. So just wanted to throw that out there.
I don't know. I mean, this what I like the movie. Like, if I looked at it like its own thing, like if I didn't look at it as Lord of the Rings, I would probably enjoy it. I enjoyed it as a kid watching it in theaters because I wasn't thinking about this stuff. But this was truly my least favorite of all the films, Lord of the Rings, we watched. On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put this part 1?
For me, I would give this, on a scale of 1 to 10, part 1 of The Return of the King, the extended edition, I would give it 7.1 out of 10.
That's pretty rough. That's just passing, though. It's still passed. I would give it... It had some cool moments, though. Like, it had some cool visuals. And I really liked the whole Nazgul thing. I thought it was cool. And Gollum, with his crumbs. That was pretty tricksy. I like that one. That was a pretty tricksy move. I'm going to give it 7.9. I'm going to give it a 7.9. I think that's fair.